Evan, this is going to be your segment, so why don't you just go ahead and give us a rant on whatever you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so today I really want to talk about officiating. Now that we've finished up the college football season, which had some major storylines when it came to officiating, and going on to the NFL, which also has a whole lot of officiating stories. I just don't understand at this point why there is no standard in officiating. You hear all the time when there are some questionable calls that we have a standard. That's fine. What is the standard? It's impossible to find what each one is. Almost every single conference pretty much governs and has a say in whatever type of official and whoever the officiating staff is going to be in a certain game going back to college. And then you've got this reciprocal aspect between what's happening in the NFL versus what's happening in college. When there's something huge that happens in the NFL, you look at Tua early on in the season who goes out with an awful concussion. That officiating staff gets word on the college level that says, look, we need to protect our players. We need to protect the quarterback. So all of a sudden you see a bunch of crazy, just awful roughing the passer calls
For
that
simple
go on.
tackling. For simple tackling.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the personal foul for in South Carolina LSU early on in the season, that pick six that was called back for roughing the passer,
South
where
Carolina's in the playoffs if that call is made correctly.
exactly, which Nussmeier, he was not a quarterback anymore. He had already thrown the ball. The ball had been picked off. He was going after the person returning that ball for a pick six, and he got blocked. He got pushed down. Sorry, bad call. And then Texas, Georgia, early on in the season. Not that this one would have changed the game, and yeah, it was probably the right call, but to just have a random break because people are throwing trash on the field, and then the call gets overturned where you are not even supposed to be able to review these types of calls is insane. And then Cameron, I'll kick it to you right after this, but my biggest thing with this is officials are making decisions where coaches, players, people on the staff, they're getting bonuses for how they perform during a season. They are making multi-million dollar decisions and they don't have to answer for any of it. And I'm not saying that they love that part of it. They would probably love to be able to defend at least some of their calls. However, coaches and players, they both have to do press conferences afterwards for what happened right, what happened wrong. Officials, nothing, absolutely nothing, and nobody knows how it's governed.
And they hide behind a press release that's sent out like 2 days later. Oh, they missed
That
the
gives
call.
no information.
All right, I got a lot of points. Cameron, why don't you go first, though?
Evan may have hit on one of the most egregious flipped calls in college sports history with that Georgia Texas game. If that game had slightly changed course and Texas had won it, throwing bottles and the precedent that that set by allowing it to be reviewed because the fans actually got involved was truly the most egregious call in probably college sports, period. The crazy part about this is this transcends just college football because this goes up to the NFL level.
Hmm.
Even this past weekend, we had Patrick Mahomes, who was a runner on a play. I believe this was in the third quarter. It was third down. He gets double teamed as a runner because he's a running back at this point. And because he gets tackled and they felt that they touched his head, which they genuinely did, and the two defenders basically ran into each other, they threw a flag. They gave him the first down. Lo and behold, Kansas City walks down the field, scores a touchdown. Game becomes pretty much out of reach at that point. It is so painful that at every level we just can't get this officiating right. And Evan, I couldn't agree more with what you said.
So,
Here's
so,
Burst.
so yeah, for real. So bouncing off what you just said, Cam, uh, Mahomes is to blame in this because he's one of those quarterbacks that'll fake run out of bounds and then swerve back into the field. But if you hit him, you're gonna get called for a late hit. So I mean, you guys remember in college where we had like the fake sliding? That was like a big topic last year.
Yeah.
Or I don't remember if that was ever resolved, but that was a thing that we would see as quarterbacks would fake slide. And like quarterbacks are just as to blame. They take advantage of the system. On that Texans Chiefs game, I think a lot of calls are made on intent rather than result. So when they looked at it, they saw the heads go in of the Texans players. Their intent was to spear them. Now, that's not how the rule should be officiated. The rule should be officiated on, did their helmet make contact? Did he spear the other person in the helmet? Or did he use his helmet as a spear in any situation? But I feel like a lot of times the flag is thrown on intent only. Yeah, you missed a guy, but you were going in with your head, so we're gonna call you on it anyways. So I
I
just
hate
don't think it's fair.
I hate the targeting call, and I think there's a lot of problem with it because you have malicious versus non-malicious.
For sure.
But one thing college football does have is the review of that penalty to actually see if it needs to assess or should not be assessed. I don't see a reason that that should not be the case when you're looking at personal fouls.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
Yeah. And Joe, you brought up kind of on the NFL side with Mahomes faking out and
that's
kind
ridiculous.
of bobbing and weaving. It is ridiculous. And it always reminds me, and I've said this for a while now, Kobe. One of the things that he was famous for is he studied the officiating playbooks and he knew where all the blind spots were around the court. So he knew when he could foul. That's the same thing with a lot of these high level quarterbacks who maybe don't have the biggest wow factors about them, but they win. You look at Tom Brady in that last Super Bowl that he won with Tampa Bay. There were some questionable calls that were
Yeah.
happening. But when you looked at the replays, if there was a pass interference that was going to be called, he knew he was never completing that pass, but he saw that defender was all over his receiver, so he specifically threw it in the ground near that receiver. Got the call, got 15 yards, converted to a touchdown. That's what a lot of these smart quarterbacks are doing. So it's while I hate the rules, I can't even blame the players because they're just taking advantage of what's there and what they know
It's
they can get away with.
it's gamesmanship, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're they're not cheating, but they're cheating the system. But
right.
it's legal. I will say though, when the quarterback throws the ball and it's out of his hand for a millisecond, and you're going to call a late hit, what is the defender supposed to do? Because honestly, any attempt by them to pull up might hurt them, right?
Yeah.
If you just tell your body, "Hey, I'm going to stop after running full speed at someone," you're asking for injuries on the other side of the ball. So,
Football is
I
an inherently dangerous game.
yeah,
Sometimes there's no way around the hit. And I
yeah.
feel like a lot of the time this is trying to get ripped out when you can't, you don't want a bunch of Tua concussion like issues. I get it. But you can't, to your point, Joey, you can't just stop mid run right as somebody's about to throw. You don't even know that the ball's been released in a lot of circumstances. You're
But
putting
but
your head down trying to make that hit.
it's also a publicity thing. Like, don't be fooled by the NFL. The NFL has been around for what, 70 years now. People used to not wear helmets and hit each other, okay? This is a publicity thing because you have moms and dads saying, "We're not going to let our kids play football anymore." And that hurts the sport. So this is the NFL's attempt to, we're going to make the game safer, but at the end of the day, I just don't know that they're calling things very fairly. So,
Needs to
Evan,
change.
really good point. That's a great conversation that we'll probably do more of. But, you know, I wanted to ask you guys a quick question. You notice all the social media sites we're now on down there? Huh? You see all that?
Love them.
I love it.
So Evan, I want you to take us out and tell people what should they do if they're on one of these sites.
If you are on one of these sites and you are not following us, or you're not subscribed, or you have not turned on those notification bells, just do it. We're on YouTube, Spotify, X, Facebook, Instagram, all the things. Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you're thinking. If we're right, if we're wrong, we would love to call you out.